Welcome to D&D Builds, where we have an outlet to make all sorts of ridiculous Dungeons & Dragons characters and stop driving the people in our lives insane with them. I've had plenty of requests for Star Wars characters and plenty of my comments. Do it. So I think it's about time we jump into the Star Wars universe, and let's build a full-blown Force user. If you want access to the character sheets for any of my builds, access to the Discord, or plenty of other perks, feel free to check out my Patreon in the description down below, where you can be just as awesome as these folks who use the Force. I want to make a build where it'll be very versatile whether you're going Sith or you're going Jedi. Well, we could pick pretty much any race to start, considering there's Jedi and Sith of all different shapes and sizes. I'm going to build this out as if it's a totally basic human. If you gotta pick a background when it comes to choosing either Jedi or Sith or whatever you want to align yourself with, I would go with a faction agent. This gives you some versatility, and you can decide early on which side of the Force you want to be on. It gives you access to insight and one intelligence, wisdom, or charisma based skill of your choice. So I would probably recommend perception, just so you're a little more aware of your surroundings, and it's super useful for any D&D campaign. Additionally, it gives you 2 languages, so I would grab Celestial because you're traveling amongst different celestial bodies, and then you can try and pick up whatever kind of dumbass language Jar Jar tries to speak. Before anything else, I really want to pick a class. And we have to choose some sort of spellcaster because there's plenty of weird random abilities that Jedi and Sith both have. But no matter what side you're on, it usually takes a fair amount of training. And we're gonna go ahead and ignore that whole midichlorians thing, as nobody's really a fan of that idea, and it helps us from directly going with something like a sorcerer where it would be in your bloodline. I know the Jedi from Star Wars were very heavily influenced by the whole idea of samurai, but we gotta lean into the idea that people really referred to them as space wizards. So we're gonna go wizard to start. I don't want to dive into the stats too much step by step, since you really can be any kind of race when you decide to be a Sith or a Jedi. So knowing where those points are going to be allocated is a little difficult. So instead, just know that you need to be somewhat nimble to be able to hop around. So definitely pick up dexterity. And then obviously you're a wizard, so put the majority of your points into intelligence. Don't completely leave constitution hanging, because otherwise you're just going to be losing even more body parts than seems to already happen in the Star Wars universe. But you can feel free to dump charisma, because plenty of the Jedi and the Sith are pretty uncharismatic. If you wind up with any extra points, just try and throw it into wisdom so you're not completely unaware of the world around you. At first level of wizard, you get spellcasting and arcane recovery, allowing you to regain some of your magical energy by studying your spellbook. You also get to learn a couple spells and some cantrips. As we go through, we're just going to make sure we grab whatever spells seem to make sense as far as a Jedi or a Sith. The very first cantrip you gotta grab is Mage Hand, because there's no way you can ever go without it. It's super integral to everything that the Force does. You have to grab Booming Blade and Green Flame Blade. This will be able to enhance whatever normal sword you're using and give you some ability to turn it into a bit of a lightsaber. Meanwhile, if you're leaning towards the dark side, I would highly recommend Shocking Grasp, because you need some lightning spells in there. As for some first level spells, I highly recommend grabbing Jump and Featherfall, because even if you're the one jumping, you can still take fall damage if you're falling far enough. Top it off with some shield and some mage armor so you can properly deflect any laser blasts coming your way. And then if you are going for the dark side, I highly recommend Witch Bolt. Witch Bolt gives you the ability to let out a beam of crackling blue energy that lances towards a creature, and you can just keep shocking the crap out of them as you're holding it down. If you have some extra spells you want to pick up at this level, I would lean towards Charm Person for your Jedi type of influence, and Detect Magic for your ability to detect the Force. At second level of Wizard, you get to choose an Arcane Tradition, and whether you're going light or dark side, I think the answer is going to be the same here. Between the abilities that this Arcane Tradition gets and the absolutely epic score that John Williams has created for the Star Wars universe, we gotta go with Bladesinging. This gives you proficiency in light armor and one type of one-handed melee weapon, which is a lightsaber, but it can just as easily be a longsword or short sword to help replicate that. Additionally, this gives you proficiency in performance if you don't already have it. Additionally, when you choose this subclass of wizard, you get to activate a Bladesong, giving you bonus AC equal to your intelligence modifier, increasing your walking speed by 10 feet, and you have advantage on acrobatics checks, which really makes sense for any of the flipping around that most Jedis do, and you gain a bonus to your Constitution saving throws to make your concentration checks equal to your intelligence modifier. At 3rd level of wizard, you get the ability to alter your cantrips if you really need to, and you get access to 2nd level spells. I would grab something that makes you a little harder to hit, like Blur, forcing creatures to have disadvantage on attack rolls against you, and then give yourself a bit of a force push with Gust of Wind, or be able to force choke somebody with Hold Person. And don't forget to add Magic Weapon to your arsenal so that way you finally have a glowing sword, really turning it into a lightsaber. If you have an extra spell to spare, I would just throw in See Invisibility so you're a little more aware of people around you, just sensing them through your ability to tap into the Force. At 4th level, you get an ability score improvement, so make sure to boost whatever intelligence you can, and you get another cantrip. So if you're leaning towards the dark side, I would definitely grab Lightning Lure, and if you just want to throw in a little extra force pushing to be able to use a bit more often, grab Gust as another cantrip. At 5th level, you get access to a 3rd level spell slot, so no matter what side you're on, I would definitely grab Haste because it really helps on the battlefield. For hypnotizing your enemies, I would grab Hypnotic Pattern. For disabling your enemies, I would lean towards grabbing Slow, as that really does place your enemies at a disadvantage. And if you're going for the dark side, there's no way you can avoid grabbing Lightning Bolt. And just for a little extra fun, if you want to be able to add one of those little breather things and swim underwater, just go ahead and grab Water Breathing. But that's only if you really want to try and replicate a device and not your force powers. At 6th level, you get an ability from your Bladesinging subclass, Extra Attack, which is going to be useful for absolutely any kind of melee fighter. At 7th level, you get access to a 4th level spell slot, so from these level of spells, I would really grab Charm Monster and Confusion for those mental aspects of the Force, and then probably throw in Divination because it seems like the Jedi have a handful of prophecies. At 8th level, you get an ability score improvement, so at this point you should probably have maxed out your intelligence, and then at 9th level you get access to a 5th level spell slot. There are a few really good spells to grab here, like Steel Wind Strike is really helpful for melee combatants, and then for pure force abilities, you can grab Hold Monster to force choke different types of creatures, and Dominate Monster, Modify Memory, and another great one to have a bit of fun with is Mislead, because Jedi and Sith definitely know how to mislead their enemies when they feel like it. One more spell I would grab just for fun from this list is Pass Wall, because you can really just take a lightsaber and use it as the most intense cutting tool imaginable. But before you jump out of this spell list, there's no way we can avoid Telekinesis and Bigby's Hand. They're two mental force moving stuff around type of spells, and they're just way too spot on. You have to include them with any Jedi or Sith build. Granted, Bigby's Hand actually has a bit of a physical form to it, but we can just pretend that that's not really there. At 10th level, you get another Bladesinging feature, Song of Defense, allowing you to use your reaction to expend one spell slot and reduce incoming damage to you by 5 times the spell slot's level that you expended. At 11th level, you get a 6th level spell slot, and if you're going with the dark side, you gotta grab Chain Lightning. But there's not a ton of other great spells at this level for you to choose as any sort of force user. You can grab Programmed Illusion, which is kind of helpful for sending a message to the Rebel Alliance, and I could see how you can make Disintegrate work for if you want to try and slash through Obi-Wan and make him completely disappear. But otherwise, the only big helper you're going to get is possibly Tensor's Transformation. This really boosts your combat ability, giving you advantage on attack rolls with simple and martial weapons, giving you additional force damage when you attack with a weapon, and giving you some temporary hit points. It gives you a few other features, but you already have most of them, so the rest don't really matter. At 12th level, you get another ability score improvement, and while you could take those ability score points and throw them into whatever you'd like, since your intelligence is probably maxed out by this point, I highly recommend looking into the feat Telekinetic. It grants you the Cantrip Mage Hand, which you already have, so you'll be able to use that Cantrip Formulas ability to learn a completely different cantrip, and it will allow you to do even more force pushing with bonus actions, which is just great to have for utilizing the most out of the actions you have on a single turn. But if you really want to optimize this feat does give you one more ability point to use, so Early on in the build, make sure to leave 1 point left over in your intelligence so you can use that for all of your force pushing. And then at 13th level, you get access to a 7th level spell slot. As far as spells from this level, you gotta grab Mordenkainen's sword. It's one of the best ways you can replicate having a lightsaber, as it creates a sword-shaped plane of force that hovers within range, and it lasts for the duration of the spell. But this sword does kind of just float around, so you're kind of using the force to move it. Otherwise, you can grab Forcecage, just because it's got force in the name. And then at 14th level, you get the Bladesinging ability Song of Victory, allowing you to add your intelligence modifier to the damage of your melee weapon attacks while your Bladesong is active. At 15th level, you get access to an 8th level spell slot, and while there's some definite play on words you can use from these spells, like Dark Star or Clone in references to the Death Star or the Clone Wars, really you're mostly going to focus on the more mental related spells here, like Dominate Monster to be able to mind control your enemy, or Feeble Mind to just give them some headache and make them not able to concentrate so well. Or even Power Word Stun can be used in a force-like way to kind of stun your enemies, but the most spot-on spell you can find from this list is going to be Telepathy, because there's tons of occasions where the Jedi and the Sith are able to mentally communicate with others. At 16th level, you get another ability score improvement, and then at 17th level, you get access to the all-powerful 9th level spell slot. And there's only 3 spells that work super well, and that's going to be Astral Projection for all of the times that the Jedi kind of project their spirit across the universe. Foresight to get that gut feeling of the Force to know when something's coming at you. So you have all of your attacks and ability checks are at advantage, and anybody attacking you is going to be at disadvantage, which is a super powerful spell, especially for somebody in melee combat. And then finally, Blade of Disaster. This is just an insanely powerful sword you summon into existence, and it's created out of a planar rift. It's about 3 feet long, and it does a crap ton of force damage when you attack with it. This is going to be the absolute epitome of a lightsaber. Granted, you only get 1 9th level spell slot to really use, so you're going to have to choose wisely, but these are some great choices that help round out being either a Sith or a Jedi. At 18th level, you get access to Spell Mastery, allowing you to choose a 1st and 2nd level wizard spell that are in your spell book, and you can cast those at their lowest level without expending a spell slot. This is going to be super useful for non-damaging spells, so if you choose Shield for this, you can just keep casting Shield with every single reaction, giving you a +5 to your AC, which is insanely strong, especially if your Bladesong is active, which also gives you a bonus to your AC. So if you have Mage Armor active, your Bladesong active, and you can just constantly cast Shield, you're pretty damn unhittable, because just the Bladesong and Shield will give you a +10 to your AC. As far as a 2nd level spell to be able to cast constantly, I know we didn't mention it before, but Shadowblade is kind of a good option. Granted, it's supposed to be a sword of solidified gloom, not a bright lightsaber, and it deals psychic damage instead of force damage. But if you want some sort of magical weapon you can constantly have active, this is a great choice to have. Otherwise, you could just go ahead and keep it simple, stick with magic weapon, and make sure you always have your magic weapon available to use, aka your lightsaber. Then at 19th level, you get your last ability score improvement, so use it wisely. And then at 20th level, the max level of this build, you get signature spells, allowing you to choose 2 3rd level wizard spells in your spellbook as your signature spells. You always have these spells prepared, and they don't count against the number of spells you have prepared at any given point. You can cast each of them once without expending a spell slot, which you can do every short or long rest. I know there are tons of other spells that could be super Star Wars-like, and there's plenty of other gadgets that pop up in the Star Wars universe, but I really wanted to focus on force powers with this. I was pretty excited that Disney Plus is adding the Kenobi show, and with so many people requesting Star Wars themed builds, I felt like giving a good idea of how you could build a Jedi or a Sith in Dungeons & Dragons was a nice build to add in. If you want the full build and full character sheet for this build or any of my other builds, feel free to check out my Patreon linked in the description down below, where you can be just as freaking awesome as these people. The Force is really with them, and they help me keep this channel going. If there's anything you would do differently about a Jedi or Sith build, let me know in the comments down below. Or if you have any other builds you would like seen in the future, also let me know because I try and read as many of the comments as possible. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, let me know by hitting that like button, and I'll be here hoping you roll at least 3 nat 20s in your next D&D session, especially if you're planning to use the Force.